New Year's resolution, it's pushing for peace. He's hosting Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy at Mar-a-Lago this afternoon in hopes of working out a deal to end the Russia-Ukraine war.
Madeleine Rivera joins us live in Washington with those details. Hey, Maddie.
Hi, good morning. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy says they're willing to do whatever it takes to end the war, and that includes many compromises. But there are still sticking points in the 20-point plan, like territorial issues, control of a Russian-occupied power plant, and security guarantees. In what could be a major concession, last week, Zelenskyy reportedly said Ukraine would be willing to pull back troops in parts of the Donbas region it still controls, but that's only if Russia does the same from an equal area of land and the area turns into a demilitarized zone. Russia, though, has long maintained it wants full control of the Donbas, and it continues to hit Ukraine, carrying out a massive drone attack in Kyiv over the weekend. Zelenskyy says it shows Russia does not have an appetite to stop the fighting.
This attack is, again, Russia's answer on our peace efforts, and it's really it shows that Putin doesn't want peace, and we want peace. And tomorrow I will have, I hope, very important and very constructive meeting with President Trump.
Russian President Vladimir Putin says it's Ukraine who's in no hurry for peace, and he's issuing this warning. Putin said that if Ukraine did not want to resolve the conflict peacefully, then Russia would accomplish all goals of its special military operation by force, and that is according to a Russian state news agency. President Trump, for his part, indicates he'll have the final say on the peace proposal, telling Politico Zelenskyy does not have anything until he approves it. Charlie, Lisa, and Griff.
Thanks, Maddie.
Thank you,
Thanks, Maddie. All right, I want to bring in Fox News Sunday anchor Shannon Bream now. Talk about this. Good morning, Shannon. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. And boy, President Trump has stayed busy with this meeting at Mar-a-Lago this afternoon. What do you anticipate we may learn and how that's going to go?
Yeah, well, some people are still kind of recovering from the holidays, still celebrating and taking another week off. The president is not doing that. When it comes to foreign policy, he's been really engaged all year long on any number of, foreign hotspots he's tried to tame down, things he's tried to mediate. And it gets serious this weekend again with Zelenskyy coming back to Mar-a-Lago to meet with President Trump. They've been hammering back and forth on these plans. While Zelenskyy says he's willing to move forward on some things he doesn't really love for his country, but if he can get a ceasefire out of Russia and they can make progress, that's one thing. But I mean, Russia spent a lot of time on Christmas Day shelling Kyiv and Ukraine. So that's going to be a big meeting this afternoon. And then, of course, Benjamin Netanyahu shows up tomorrow for conversations on the Middle East.
Let's play a quick clip from that contentious meeting that you just mentioned between President Trump and Zelenskyy in the Oval Office.
Gave you military equipment, and you men are brave, but they had to use our military. If you didn't have our military equipment, this war would have been over in 2 weeks.
In 3 days, I heard it from Putin. In 3 days.
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the president for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
So, of course, that was in February, just a month and a half after President Trump returned to the Oval Office. I think that his frustration has not ebbed since then, although I do think Zelenskyy has probably learned a few things from that meeting.
Yeah, and there are only a couple of days left in the year, but I feel confident in saying that was the most awkward public display and meeting in the White House this year, easily in 2025.
Maybe in history.
And maybe in history, certainly televised. But think about how much the president has been back and forth. There are times that he has met with Zelenskyy and seemed very open to his concerns and to trying to get this thing done. Then there are other times when he's had meetings and appearances and conversations with Putin where he's taken a lot of accusations that he's been too deferential to Putin. So we'll see what we get from this meeting today. But Zelenskyy is definitely coming in saying, listen, I appreciate what the White House is doing. I appreciate what America has done for us. And I want to get this thing done. So I want to get there tomorrow and say to the president, okay, here's where we can agree and let's move this thing forward. He keeps saying, as President Trump and many of his administration are saying too, it's up to Russia to actually come to the table and agree to stop some of this stuff.
Shannon, there's a lot of big sticking points left. You've got security guarantees, you've got territory disputes, you've got sanctions as well that are in dispute. How challenging are these things for President Trump to navigate?
Yeah, I think that there's frustration, certainly, by the president, because this is something you guys know all through the campaign. He said, we're going to get this thing settled and get it done and over with. And he will say, listen, if I had been president, this incursion, this Russian attack into Ukrainian territory wouldn't have happened. But now he's dealing with what's been going on for more than 3 years, and trying to get this thing wrapped up has been, I think, one of the greatest frustrations he's had in the second term. So he wants it done.
Let me shift gears, if I can, Shannon, because you have a must-watch interview today, a story that has impacted the nation and in many ways revived faith across the nation in the tragic assassination of Charlie Kirk. You sat down with his widow, Erica Kirk, and talked to her about keeping her faith and her relationship with God. We have a preview clip I want to play for our viewers.
What are your conversations like with him now about where you're at?
With God? Mm-hmm. Quite frankly, they're kind of the same. I've never questioned why me. I always knew that my life was not just to be lived for me. We're here for such a greater purpose, and Charlie and I both knew that.
So somebody who's listening to our conversation, if they are interested or curious, where would you tell them to start when it comes to trying to figure out what faith is?
One, yes, buy a Bible, for sure. Make sure you surround yourself with Bible-believing Christians that will pour into you. Not just plant a seed and leave, but really water that seed and love on you and walk and do life with you.
Wow, such a important, powerful clip we played there. Tell us more about the Fox Faith Special.
Yeah, we've got an hour-long faith special. Erica and that interview is the heart of it. You're going to see two big chunks of that. But we talked to a lot of other people about faith and what it means in their life. I talked to Justice Amy Coney Barrett. We talked to a couple of astronauts. So we visit with all kinds of different people. We talk about, too, this explosion of faith on college campuses. I talked to Tanya Pruitt, who has been the leader of this Unite Us group that's been all across these campuses, colleges begging her to come, kids getting baptized. I talked to a rabbi who serves at George Washington here, too, and saying how young people are returning to their Jewish faith and wanting to be in community together. So Gen Z is spending more time in worship services than the older generation. So we look at all those things.
You know, Shannon, you're a woman of faith as well. A lot of people have a hard time understanding how Erica Kirk could forgive her husband's assassin. What does the Bible say about the importance of forgiveness?
Yeah, think about how many times we're told to forgive. What if they offend me? Okay, 7 times? No, 70 times 7. I mean, essentially what Christ is calling us to is to give the gift that he gave us. Because I don't know about you guys, but I need forgiveness every day. I mean, there are things that I need help with. And so how are we to then not turn around to others and give them the forgiveness that God has given us? And so that's what we're called to do in Scripture. And, you know, a lot of people will wonder how Erica can do that, how she can be so active and out there doing this work she's doing. But if you listen to her, she said, you know, I never thought that my life was my own. Charlie never thought his life was his own. We were here to spend it, to pour it out for the things that we think are important. And that gives her a lot of peace in moving forward and a strength that's really hard for a lot of people to understand.
You know, I love your question there in that clip, and it reminds me of the difficulty of trying to find that faith after something horrifying has happened, and I guess in some way it is easier to find that faith before something bad happens.
Yeah, and we talked about that on camera and off, about how we both grew up in homes with faith, and you memorize these verses, and what do they actually mean when you have to live them? Things where the Bible tells us that all things work together for, you know, the good, and to those who are called according to God and his purpose. I mean, you can memorize those things, but then when you have to walk through the valley and live them out, I mean, another person we'll talk about on the show today is former Senator Ben Sasse, and this amazing post he made about, hey, I'm dying of pancreatic cancer, but I have this incredible hope, and spending the time to talk about that to people. So I think in your darkest moments, I know for me, the darkest valleys in my life are where I felt closest to God, because it was the only thing I had to lean on, and he showed up.
That's because you were walking the walk, not just talking the talk. It's called a Fox Faith Special on Fox News Sunday with Shannon Bream. Shannon, thank you so much, and thanks for doing this special.
Yeah, Happy New Year. Good to see you all.
Thanks, Shannon. You too. Always great to see you.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.